How's it going, guys? As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne, and this is Deck Ready, my channel all about the Steam Deck. I saw the comments, I saw the replies. I'm gonna try and slow down in this video, but not that slow. I understand that I should not drink white monsters before I record anymore. That was my mistake. In today's video, I've got 3 topics to cover. The first one is that Valve just patented a feature that's going to be a game changer on the Steam Deck. The second news story is that Half-Life Alyx's no VR mod just got a huge update for Steam Deck. And finally, it looks like the Steam Deck has successfully resurrected Diablo 4, so I'm going to give you my personal settings that I think are the best. Before I jump into it all, I might be at 50,000 subscribers by the time you see this video, so if I am, thank you so much for being one of those 50,000 subscribers, and if you're not one of them, please subscribe and set your notifications to all. This is my favorite channel I work on, so I'd love to eventually hit 100K with it, but 50K is a massive milestone. All right, let's jump into this first news story here, which is all about a new patent from Valve that leads us not only to the future of the Steam Deck, but also unannounced Valve hardware that we all kind of know is coming. So from a hardware perspective, I think at this point in time, the Steam Deck is far outclassing what I'd assumed it'd be able to do at least 2 years into its life cycle, mainly because, you know, PC gaming kind of advances pretty quickly. In the console world, you keep a console for like 7 to 8 years and then you upgrade. But in the PC world, if you have enough money, you could theoretically upgrade your stuff every 2 to 3 years because they never stop making new GPUs or CPUs. So with that in mind, with the Steam Deck being a sort of hybrid between a PC and a console, I'm honestly very impressed with how many new games I'm still able to run just out of the box. I mean, stuff like Five Nights at Freddy's Into the Pit or Conscript, I'd be shocked if those didn't run on the Steam Deck because they're both pixelated games that are like 16-bit and don't seem like they're going to push the Steam Deck at all. So I'm glad that those run completely fine out of the box. But then even full-on PS5 ports like Ghost of Tsushima's Director's Cut, you don't really have to make any real concessions to get a solid 30 FPS experience out of that game specifically on the Steam Deck, which is awesome because we're over 2 years into this thing's life cycle, and that's usually when you'd expect an underpowered PC handheld to start slowing down. But even when you compare it to stuff like the ROG Ally X or the Lenovo Legion Go, both of which have chips that are faster than what's in the Steam Deck, there are plenty of cases where it outpaces those two competitors. But there's always been that future-proofing feature on the Steam Deck from day one, which is the ability to stream games from your PC. There are plenty of ways to do it. You could use Xbox Game Pass streaming, which is pretty easy to set up through the included Chrome browser. You could set up Moonlight, which will allow you to stream your Steam games from your main gaming PC. You can even use NVIDIA's GeForce Now service, which is a cool one to me because when they announced it, I was still working for Austin Evans. I was his lead editor, and every year we would go to CES in Vegas, and we had a meeting with NVIDIA where they were going to show us this new game streaming technology. I had tried out some other competitors and I wasn't impressed, and I still don't really like game streaming if I'm being honest, but seeing like how well NVIDIA's GeForce Now service worked on like hotel Wi-Fi in Vegas with that many people there, I was like, whoa, this might actually be a competitive service in the future. And here we are like 5 or 6 years later, and yeah, it is a really good service that you can use on the Steam Deck. But the one big caveat when it comes to streaming games from a PC, from the cloud, from anywhere to your Steam Deck or your PlayStation Portal or your Logitech G Cloud or really anything is latency. That's like the biggest reason why I don't like streaming. Not only latency, like increasing the amount of time it takes for your button input to register, but like the overall quality of the stream is totally variable based on your internet. And you know, I just don't like messing with it. Any time of the day, I'd rather have a device that can natively run these games. But you know, a lot of people out there do enjoy streaming some of those beefier games that you can't play on the Steam Deck to their Steam Deck because it gives them that PlayStation Portal like experience where they can take advantage of their games that they own on their main gaming PC, but they can hang out with their friends and family on the couch. Like when my wife's watching The Bachelor, I like playing Steam Deck. So I completely understand why people enjoy streaming games to the Steam Deck. And it looks like Valve, like they do so much with the Steam Deck, is taking notice that there's a big group of people who have this device that like streaming games because they're patenting technology that's going to improve it tenfold. We're going to talk about the Steam Deck aspect of this first and then the other hardware after. So the first thing they want to do is do their best to completely eliminate latency. Now, I'm not sure based on the patent if this is going to need new hardware, like if this is going to be a Steam Deck 2 feature, or if the current run of Steam Deck LCDs and the current run of OLEDs have the technology already enabled, but once Valve gets it figured out behind the scenes, it's something they can like shadow drop onto the Steam Deck over an over-the-air update. But either way, I think this would be a really good selling point for a Steam Deck 2 when you get that new marketing cycle to be like, hey, not only is this thing a lot more powerful, it's going to be able to run games from the PS5 and Xbox Series X generation, but we're going to future-proof it for you. So you can use it for much longer than you would assume, like when we do the eventual Steam Deck 2 Plus or something like that. You can rest easy knowing that your $400 to $500 purchase that you just made is future-proofed, because you'll always be able to stream games directly from your main gaming PC. And that's a really good move for Valve to make, because, you know, keeping people in the Steam ecosystem is obviously the ultimate goal of the Steam Deck, because it's hardware that implements itself very well with their own proprietary storefront. But if you have a huge Steam library that you build up on the Steam Deck, that could get you in the frame of mind where when the PS5 generation ends and you're looking at the PS6 or building your own gaming PC, you're going to sit there and say, well, I spent the last generation building up this massive Steam library through all these Steam sales, through all these like Humble Bundle, Humble Choice bundles. I have a ton of Steam games, and I might even have more Steam games than PlayStation Network games. And, you know, you could make the jump from console gaming to PC gaming. That's what I think the Steam Deck does so well. It's basically like a great entry point into the world of PC gaming for people who have never really wanted to jump into it, because, you know, from a console player's perspective, it does seem incredibly complicated. But when you have a device like the Steam Deck that basically turns it into a console-like interface, it makes it a whole lot easier. So it's like a great little gateway, like Blumhouse movies are, into the world of horror. So for me, someone who doesn't care really at all about streaming games, I still see the utility of it, and the future-proofing aspect is great. Like, at the very least, if we do get to this terrible eventual future where every game is streamed from the cloud, you can't download anything to your actual machine, you can access your PlayStation or Steam account on your TV instead of actually having a top box or something like that. In that case, that dismal future, I'm glad that Valve is kind of leading the charge here with a new piece of technology that, if it works right, is going to eliminate latency. Now, the other piece of hardware that this applies to is this long rumored standalone VR headset from Valve, because right now they have the Valve Index, and it was the gold standard for a very long time in terms of VR headsets. And I think the PSVR 2 with a PS5 is better, mainly because of foveated rendering, which is, if you're looking at something, it's basically rendered in high resolution, and then the stuff in your peripheral vision is lower resolution, but it's fast enough rendering where it can kind of like anticipate where you're going to look and pre-render the stuff that it thinks you're going to look at. I experienced it in Resident Evil Village, and it was awesome. That game looks phenomenal in VR, and when you combine that with the great Sense controllers and the OLED screens that are in front of your eyes and the overall just lightness of the PSVR 2, it's kind of like the best experience I've ever had with VR. But the Index is much better when it comes to PC, because that adapter that Sony sells for the PSVR 2 doesn't work with a lot of Bluetooth chips in PCs, so you basically have to get an external Bluetooth chip to even connect the controllers, and B, it neuters a lot of the best features of the PSVR 2, including foveated rendering. So what Valve is working on with this patent is their own version of foveated rendering that will work streaming games from your main gaming PC to this headset wirelessly, and that sounds awesome. You know, I flip-flop back and forth on VR. I'm an original Oculus Quest adopter. We got one in at the office when I was working for Austin, and I spent like the whole day getting Pavlov side-loaded onto it. I was blown away. So when it actually came out, I drove over to Walmart after work and I picked one up. I had a ton of fun with it, and then when they added in the feature that allowed it to basically be an Oculus Rift, I played a ton of games on Steam VR like Boneworks and everything else, and I thought it was awesome. Then the Quest 2 came out. I got that during lockdown, and I had fun with it. I ended up watching a lot of movies with it and stuff like that, but the graphics jump from natively playable games wasn't good enough for me, so I didn't get the Quest 3. I got the PSVR 2 for PS Ready. I was impressed with it, but then there was no games for it, so I kind of fell off. If Valve made a headset that was standalone that could connect to my Steam Deck, and I could either run games off my Steam Deck or run them off my main gaming PC and stream to the headset, that would be immediately interesting to me, because I love Valve hardware. I've had the Steam controller, I've had the Steam Link, I've had 2 Steam Decks at this point. I am all in on Valve hardware, and with the limited time I have had with the Valve Index, I really enjoyed my time with it. So I hope that this headset that they're working on actually does come out, and it follows a similar model to the Steam Deck in the sense where they're kind of taking a loss on it with the assumption that they'll make the loss back by you buying Steam games. I think that's what every company needs to do with VR, as evidenced by the fact that when the PSVR 2 was put on fire sale for over $200 off, it shot to the top sellers list and completely sold out. It's never really been a problem of quality when it comes to VR. It's always been the fact that it's exorbitantly expensive, right? Like even the Valve Index was over $1,000, and when you're spending spending over $1,000 on a PC or $500 on a PS5, spending $500 on a headset or spending $1,000 on a headset on top of your PC, it was never really all that feasible. But if it's going to play your Steam games natively or interface with the Steam Deck and games you already purchased, that means Valve can really afford to take a little bit of a loss on it. And if they can get in at like a $250 or $300 price point with this thing, then it immediately becomes something that people will consider as a day one purchase. But seeing this streaming technology be implemented is awesome, because that's the only streaming device I've ever liked. The Oculus Quest and Quest 2 streaming from my gaming PC, the quality of video was great and the latency was great. So it was an awesome experience all around. Like, it got to the point where you really couldn't tell that you were streaming a game from your PC instead of using a really long USB-C cord. It was really that good. Anyway, that brings us to the second news story of today's video, which is a huge update for the no VR mod for Half-Life Alyx. Now, speaking of VR, I played Half-Life Alyx the day it came out in VR. That was a great lockdown game. And as someone who experienced the Half-Life series very late, like I played Black Mesa when that came out, then I played Half-Life 2, and then I played episodes 1 and 2 during lockdown. It was great leading right into Half-Life Alyx and getting more context for the story. It was an awesome first-person shooter on its own. But yeah, at the time, no one really had VR headsets, and I'm sure the game sold pretty well, but like, it didn't really do the numbers that you would expect from the return of Half-Life after all those years. I mean, it wasn't Half-Life 3 anyway, so it was never going to be this monumental release or anything like that, but it was always a game that could have done better if it included a no VR mode. So of course, modders did their thing. They started digging into it and recreating the game basically from the ground up to work in 2D, and it's always been something that you could run on the Steam Deck, but there was always so many caveats that it was never something I really wanted to go ahead and install. But now with the latest update, it seems like something that not only I am going to go and install, but everyone, as long as you own the game already or can get it at a cheap price, should definitely try out on their Steam Deck, because right out of the gate, you get a performance profile that's built for the Steam Deck that allows it to run at a completely locked 60 frames per second. And then another update that they've added is like the classic Valve crosshair that was in Half-Life 2 and episode 1 and 2, the one that's not very accurate. A lot of people wanted that added into the game, so that's added. And a lot of the puzzles that were acting finicky being transferred over from full 3D interaction with a headset over to 2D, like flat mode, they went in and fixed all of that. So now you can essentially play the game from start to finish as if it's a completely new Half-Life game. Anyway, that brings us to the third news story of today's video, which is that Diablo 4 has been resurrected thanks to the Steam Deck. So if you didn't hear, season 5 just launched, and it's the first season since they did that Loot Reborn season in season 4, where they kind of let the story stuff and new items and new bosses take a back seat, and there was really like an Operation Health type update where they redid how the Hell Tides work, they redid the entire loot system, they redid the entire crafting system, they made leveling faster. It was definitely a season that needed to happen, and I thought it was really good. I got a character, a new rogue, all the way up to level 100, and I was like kind of good until the new expansion, and then I saw the trailer for season 5, and I was like, oh, I'm jumping back in, because it sort of adds a new event that's like the Forces of Hell. It's like a Helltide type thing, but it's like a horde mode, and it seems really cool, and the actual armor you get from the battle pass seems cool, so I went ahead and downloaded it on my Steam Deck again, and it seems like a lot of other people did too, because this game shot up the list on Steam, and now it's at number 5 thanks to the Steam Deck. And the more interesting thing about that is this game is not on sale. Like, usually they do a sale on the game every time they launch a new season. That wasn't the case this time. I'm pretty sure it's $70, so a lot of people are buying this game for full price. And last time I checked, there was like 47,000 people playing on Steam concurrently, so it actually does seem like this game is back. Now, my personal settings, I don't know if you guys are gonna like them, because some people just love lowering the settings to the absolute lowest to get 60 FPS. My settings are 30 FPS, but they work really well. Like, it's a hard lock 30 FPS that you'll never see any stutter in as long as your internet is good enough. And basically it's just the medium preset and then using FSR2 at quality. If you do that, you'll get a nice clear image at 800p. The medium preset looks awesome. You can even bump the textures up to high. And if you do that, if you're in like crazy dungeons, like nightmare dungeons, if you're in the Helltide when it's really maxed out, if you're in this new horde mode, I have personally never seen the number 29 once once in my entire playthrough of the last season when I played to level 100 entirely on my Steam Deck. So if you're like me and you like consistent settings that will get you the best graphical quality and the most even, perfect straight line frame time graph possible, I would say keep it at 800p, use quality FSR2 and a medium preset, and then you'll just be good to go. I saw some articles, like one from PC Guide or something, that was like, this game completely works fine out of the box. Maybe, yeah, if you're looking at it across the room, I guess, but like, I don't think the default settings, A, look that good or run that good. Like, you're running between 40 and 60 FPS, and seeing that jarring drop and raise in the frame rate is abysmal in my opinion. So yeah, there's no sales or anything, and unfortunately Blizzard games, you can't find them on key resellers really ever for not regular price. I bought it when it came to Steam the first time and there was a discount there. But yeah, if you want to try out Diablo 4, it runs really well on the Steam Deck at medium settings, 30 FPS, 800p FSR quality. There's the Jimmy Champagne deck ready endorsement of Diablo 4. Let me know if you're playing down in the comments below. And if you want to add me on Steam, let me know and I'll just like respond to a comment with my Steam name and we can get into some Diablo. If you see me online, you can just join my game. Anyway, guys, as always, my name is Jimmy Champagne. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching and shape on.